Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're standing beside a backyard table glittered with confetti and lemon-frosted cupcakes, the paper lanterns bobbing like small moons, while a helium balloon nudges my shoulder as if it recognizes me better than the people who invited me. The grill murmurs, the ice clinks, and a boy in a paper crown counts his candles under a chorus that almost sounds like family. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I like seeing our little constellation of night owls. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe let a fan hum in the background. And let's begin tonight's journey together. I bring a gift bag with a blue ribbon and a card that says simply, Noah. 8 looks good on you. I set it quietly beneath the table with the stacks of napkins that pretend to be festive. The cupcake tower leans a polite degree, like Pisa after a manners class light joke when I allow myself inside my own head, because speaking it aloud would shift the air too quickly. Brianna's ponytail is sharp as punctuation. She arranges forks with surgical grace and a public smile that feels pre-sliced. She doesn't greet me. She tucks a whisper into Noah's ear instead. A moth into a jar. Noah turns, the paper crown gone crooked. Mom says, "You're not even my real grandmother," he announces. And the music from someone's phone chooses that exact moment to fade. In the silence, plastic forks reconsider their life choices. I kneel to his eye level and see that he believes he's performing honesty, not cruelty. Because children are the most obedient narrators in the room. Cake time, Daniel calls. Overbright. My son has perfected the volume that hopes to herd feelings back into their pen. He meets my eyes for half a second, then looks past me. A man studying weather he refuses to name. I could teach a small seminar on that glance, how it slides away from the person you love, because facing them would rearrange your furniture. The candles go up like tiny streetlights. Together we sing, together we inhale, together we cheer. Noah scrunches his face, wishes, blows. I clap gently and feel something stack itself inside my chest plates, not cards. When the slices move around the table, Brianna skips me as if my chair has developed invisibility. I reach for water. She redirects the pitcher. Light joke 2, said only to the condensation halo. It's fine, darling. I've been hydrated by worse situations. The glass fogs, unamused but present. Elder wisdom reflection, rolling toward me in my mother's voice when someone sets a small fire with words. Don't blow cover it with a lid. Fire wants your breath. I fold my breath inward and lift my plate. Happy birthday. Noah, I say. Because birthdays deserve sentences without arguments tucked inside. He stares at the frosting as if it's a map. Across the lawn. Balloons tremble against the fence. Even helium looks uneasy. Helium looks... Quirky fact. I can't help thinking because my brain files odd comfort where it can... Helium atoms slip through latex faster than you'd think. By morning. The balloons sink not from drama but from simple physics. Things that rise can soften overnight without anyone doing them wrong. If only families obeyed gas laws. Brianna performs hostess, grace napkin triangles. A photo from the right side. A laugh that lands 2 beats late. She leans to Noah and murmurs again. And he shrugs me off like a sweater he outgrew this afternoon. I decide not to argue with a child's shoulders. Daniel, I say later, while the piñata sways on the oak branch. We should talk. He swallows a reply, then chooses. Let's not do this here. Here, as if place, not truth, is the problem. The bat taps the candy donkey. Children scatter like confetti with lungs. Light joke 3, to the oak. You are doing wonderfully at not taking sides. The tree accommodates all of us without applause, which is more kindness than we deserve. On the patio, Brianna pauses beside me, still smiling for the cousins. We're building boundaries, she says, like a woman reading a recipe out loud to prove it's healthy. Labels help Noah feel safe. Academic phrase of the day, parental alienation. The public argument that one caregiver's steady denigration can distort a child's perception of the other. Though scholars fight over definitions, misuse in court, and the line between protection and manipulation. I don't use the term with her. I only say, labels should tell the truth. She tilts her head. Truth is subjective. She replies, as if gravity tips for her convenience. Daniel loads a trash bag with paper plates and refuses to look like a man refusing to look. When I step toward him, he steps toward the grill. He's 8, he says. He repeats things. And you, I ask, quiet. He rearranges tongs like an alibi. We'll all come down, he tells the marinade, as if sauces control afternoons. There are a dozen routes to storming out, and I choose none of them. I stack chairs. I retrieve my gift from beneath the table science kit, light up circuits, a book of questions that loves why, and set it beside Noah's pile. He doesn't touch it. Later I will see it behind a laundry basket for 3 months, then in a yard sale photo. The ribbon still neat for now. I leave it unlamented, the way you leave a glass in the sink when the house needs you to pretend it will clean itself. I make my exit at a reasonable beat, as if I had promised to check the roast that isn't in my oven. Daniel kisses my cheek like a man who must place a stamp on a letter he didn't write. Thanks for coming, he says. And I almost laugh because I did come, and I was not welcomed. The sentence is a little magician. Now you see the meaning. Now you see the performance. The driveway holds my car the way a kind hand holds a breath. I sit with the engine off until my pulse learns a quieter grammar. You could call what I feel heartbreak, but the word suggests tearing. What I feel is an unthreading. The stitch line in my chest goes slack, and everything waits to see whether I will pull or rethread. I choose neither tonight. I go home. Silence arrives like rain deciding to stay. Days pass. The photos from the party climb social media without tagging me. The family thread dims. When holidays approach, invites arrive with caveats, quick drop-ins, staggered times, so things feel smooth. Smooth is a euphemism I start to recognize by sound alone. Noah's drawings stop featuring me. His handwriting gets more certain even as the story of me gets shakier. I buy lemons I don't need and teach myself to make frosting I don't eat. Because hands like tasks when the heart loses nouns. I think of calling, I write notes and don't send them. I draft speeches and practice not giving them in the mirror. I read an article about long grief and circle a sentence that understands me. Some losses don't announce themselves. They just go around turning off lights. I start turning on little lamps at night on the stove, by the bird book, next to the chair that doesn't wobble. The house learns a new constellation and decides it will guide me home. I do not promise forgiveness. I do not promise revenge. I promise myself a steady table, a working pen, a bank account that answers to me. in the margin of a grocery list, I write, "You still get to build." The list includes batteries, a small toolkit, clear labels. I buy a notebook with pages that take ink like they were waiting for the right story. When I open it, the first line appears all by itself, as if a future version of me reached back with a kind hand when they decided I wasn't real. I decided to become undeniable. I tape that sentence to the inside of a cabinet door, right where the mugs breathe. The kettle learns to whistle without startling me. The days keep their shape. 7 years don't announce themselves either. They begin as one evening that remembers the direction it's going. The first Monday after the party, I scrubbed a stovetop until it remembered steel. And a quiet directive settled in my ribs: if they take your title, build your table. I picked up extra nights at the hospital. A Saturday rotation at the dorms corridors, smelling like detergent, and stacked meek 20s in an envelope labeled house. Ms. Keating ran a residential cleaning service out of a mint green bungalow on Willow, the kind of woman who could inventory a closet by sound. "Come mornings," she said, tapping a clipboard. "We'll see if your corners are honest." They were. She taught me to fold fitted sheets without wrestling and to make vacuum lines like a field after wind. Light joke 1, whispered to the upright, "You paint." I signed the canvas. Elder wisdom reflection, stitched to me by women who survived stubborn hours when the heart is noisy. Give your hands a list. Hands hush a day better than speeches. Mine learned a clean choreography top to bottom, dry to wet. Left to right, because order is a mercy you can pour over tile. Work multiplied like yeast, humble, relentless. I took Airbnb turnovers no one wanted because keys failed and guests lied. I kept a trunk tote with every odd screw an apartment might ask for. I added post-renovation jobs, fine dust in places dust has no right to be, and wore an N95 without complaint. Sundays meant lemon oil and a calendar with squares big enough to park trucks. Quirky fact for your nightstand: microfiber cloths are split into tiny wedges during manufacturing, so they squeegee water at a scale you can't see. That's why they grab everything, including the one receipt you meant to keep. I started carrying a do not grab pouch so the day could keep its proof. By year 2, I could read a baseboard the way some read palms. Miss Keating's knees began writing their resignation letter in creaks. She called me into that mint green office and tapped the calculator like a metronome. "If you want it," she said, "I'll carry the note. You carry the work." We wrote a number that didn't make either of us flinch. I signed with clean hands and a quiet spine. I kept her crew and added 2 more. We standardized the kits: 1 caddy for kitchens, 1 for baths, 1 for floors, and color-coded cloths because laundry is a truth teller. Fridays became reset day: empty vacuums, wash filters, sharpened scrapers. Tools deserve the same respect as paychecks. Academic phrase of the day: devaluation of care work, the public argument that cleaning and caregiving are paid and praised less because they're coded feminine and mistaken for love. So markets discount them even while economies lean on them. I wrote it on the whiteboard and told the team, charge what this labor is worth, then deliver twice the dignity. The first van came used, white with a dignified dent. The second arrived 2 springs later, Lake Blue. Our name in simple letters under a roofline logo. We took move-outs for property managers who needed small miracles by 3 p.m, then partnered with a handy person to patch nail holes and rehang closet doors. Light joke 2, to the spackle bucket. We specialize in gentle amnesia. I kept a no list on the office wall: no mystery solvents, no high ladders, No, can you just... That smells like 3 unpaid hours. Saying no is a mop that keeps tomorrow from getting sticky. Meanwhile, I paid for certifications, OSHA refreshers, bloodborne pathogen training, pool basics because quiet empires grow by being the adult in the room. Rates went up, health stipends arrived, people stayed. A storm peeled part of the library roof that 3rd year, and we volunteered a Saturday. People saw us working fast and kind, and work begets work when it's seen. The city put out a facilities bid. We lost the first time and won the second because our spreadsheet sang and still showed its math. Light joke 3, wholesome as a folded towel. If Excel had a snooze button, I'd be dangerous. Rosa joined that summer small as a sparrow, twice as precise, and Marco followed with forearms that could lift a sofa and a patience that could train one. I learned to interview without apologizing and to negotiate as if dignity were a line item. It is. On Thursdays, I met Ms. Keating for tea and brought ledgers to admire. Your margins are honest, she'd say. I kept my personal life folded small. Holidays were single plates and long walks. When photos of Noah scrolled past angles replacing roundness, I let myself look without drowning. Sometimes I wrapped a science kit for a charity drive and wrote 8 looks good on you. We added allied services the 4th year light organizing, pantry resets, linen rotations. Year 5 brought a second bungalow for laundry and a tiny office where schedules could hang without sagging. A realtor whispered about staging, and suddenly I owned duvets with neutral ambitions. Year 6. We leased a warehouse with skylights that made even mops feel glamorous. At night, back in my small house, I labeled bins, tools, tax, home, and taped a sentence inside the mug cabinet where my morning reached first. When they decided I wasn't real, I decided to become undeniable. The paper curled once, then settled. By spring 7, the envelope labeled house had outgrown itself and moved into an account that behaved. My realtor friends sent listings with patient kitchens and old trees. Sometimes I drove the long way home to pass hedges that trimmed the sky and imagine a pool where neighborhood kids could shout their vowels in summer. Not revenge, not exhibition, just rooms that teach people how to behave. Starting with me. Once, outside a gate thick with bougainvillea, I read the price twice. Then once more for the part of me that had scrubbed other people's kitchens and now knew exactly which window I wanted the morning in. I didn't call the agent yet. I wrote the address on a sticky note and pressed it in my wallet beside the spare key Miss Keating gave me. I went home, set a single mug on my quiet counter, and listened to the click a well-cut key makes in the imagination. The calendar on the fridge wore ordinary squares. In the corner of next month, I drew a small star. Not a promise, just a compass. Somewhere, a boy I loved was getting taller. I could not turn that tide. I could build a shore that would know how to greet him if he ever waited back. The address on the sticky note turned into a gate that opened with the kind of quiet money makes when it isn't bragging. The driveway curved through bougainvillea that behaved like a chorus pink, thorned, excellent posture. The house itself wasn't a castle. It was a well-educated rectangle with a patient porch and windows that wanted to watch people keep their promises. I walked the rooms in my soft-soled shoes and counted the places where a life could calm down. The kitchen admitted it could feed a crowd without getting dramatic. The study asked for a lamp that spoke in a library voice. Out back, a pool held the sky like a polite mirror. I made an offer I could sleep under. The seller blinked at my proof of funds and at my insistence on a long inspection. Sleep is worth more than speed. 3 weeks later, I carried a ring of keys that smelled like brass and lemon oil. Rosa walked through with me and tapped baseboards. Marco checked the pump and the fence. I checked light switches the way a substitute teacher checks names carefully, kindly, and twice. Elder wisdom reflection. Learned from the woman who taught me to fold a fitted sheet without cussing. If you want people to behave in a house, let the house help you. Locks that click. Lights that warm without glaring. Chairs that don't wobble. A schedule the rooms can memorize. Home is a teammate if you tune it. I furnished with good bones, dining chairs that don't squeak. A couch that forgives naps. Plates that clink softly like agreement. The bedrooms wore linen that said, welcome, without saying, please, live here forever. Light joke 1. Whispered to a sofa that almost sold me on drama, you're auditioning for readable and washable, not star of a tearful monologue. It sulked, and I chose the quieter one. I planted 2 lemon trees and a rosemary hedge, because kitchens like to look out and see tomorrow. In the corner by the pool, I set up a small science station under a shade sail kits with snap circuits, a magnifying lamp, labeled bins, not bait, not bribe, just a place where curiosity could sit if it decided to visit. Inside the pantry, I put a basket of pool towels with a sign that read, hang to dry after you borrow. Towels are a democracy I admire. Quirky fact, courtesy of pool school and a patient lifeguard. The strong chlorine smell people think means clean is usually chloramine's used up sanitizer, grabbing onto sweat and sunscreen. Truly balanced water doesn't shout at your nose. I wrote Quiet Ocean on a laminated card and clipped it to the pump schedule. Sir Splash-A-Lot would have been funnier, but the filter appreciates dignity. A lawyer named Harper Wells met me at the long table and reviewed a packet with a spine. House rules live best on paper with signatures and dates, she said. And we drafted 3 documents I didn't want to need and hoped I'd be glad to own a residency agreement for any adult relation who wanted to stay longer than a weekend employment or enrollment required. Plus, counseling if requested by either party, a visitor code for anyone supervising a minor here, no disparagement of other caregivers. It makes children's ears bend wrong. And a 1-page grace clause that allowed for pauses, renegotiations, and celebrations when people tried hard. Academic phrase of the day, compassionate accountability. The public argument that love without boundaries curdles and boundaries without love calcify. Whole departments and dinner tables argue about which should blink first. I wanted a house that could blink both eyes on purpose. We put a notary stamp beside the part that said, conversations would be documented after any conflict. Not to punish, but to keep the story from straying. I called my insurance agent and added guardrails, umbrella coverage, cameras that only watched doors and the gate, a pool policy that required a lifeguard on open Saturdays. On those Saturdays, we let the neighborhood kids in from 10 to noon with waivers and a giant bowl of cut fruit. The laughter lifted the roof just enough to remind the house it had nothing to hide. Light joke 2. To a parent who apologized for the noise while tying a small shoe, I've hosted spreadsheets louder than this. The guest suite got a small desk, a clock that doesn't judge you, and a door that locks from the inside. The upstairs corner room light for reading. A window that keeps the moon politely framed, I left mostly empty. On the dresser, I put a photo of a boy with a paper crown, slightly crooked, and a note under the glass that said simply, for real. I do not stage a shrine. I stage the possibility of telling the truth in a place that can bear it. Marco and Rosa trained a small team for the property the way you'd teach a kitchen brigade checklists. Labels, no heroics. I hired a counselor to run a weekly group on the porch called Holding Lines Kindly. Some neighbors came. more for the lemonade than the workbook at first, then for the part where they said out loud what they'd been rehearsing silently for years. The house liked the sound of grown-ups being brave without breaking furniture. I wrote letters to the future, one to myself. One to Noah, sealed them, dated them, and tucked them into the study's bottom drawer beside the warranty for the stove. The letter to me said, "Do not perform welcome. Embody it with conditions you can keep." The letter to him said, "If you want to walk the rooms, I'll hand you the lamp and let you go first." I built a kitchen calendar that framed our days like a hymn open Saturdays, quiet Tuesdays, Wednesday soup. On quiet Tuesdays, I turned my phone upside down, wrote checks to the programs that helped me, and invited Miss Keating to inspect the pantry for joy. She approved the jars and the labels and the fact that the cinnamon always had a partner. "Pairs make kitchens kind," she said. I bought extra wooden spoons because spoons go wandering when you host big feelings. I didn't tell Daniel I'd bought it. Not as a power play, more like an experiment to see whether good news could find its own legs. It didn't have to. People who knew me knew where I'd landed, and I told them they were welcome with their inside voices. When the first photos of the porch slipped onto local social media, someone commented, "Ah, her cleaning company grew up." I smiled and sent them a gift card for a deep clean, even though I suspected the comment came from a cousin who owed me 2 Christmases and a skillet. Letters still came with Noah in them. He got taller around the eyes, started wearing a hoodie year-round, learned to smirk at a camera without committing to it. On his 15th birthday, I didn't mail a gift. I sent a donation to the school robotics team in honor of a kid who likes circuits and folded the receipt into my ledger under a tab labeled Soft Investments. Light joke 3 to the ledger as it accepted yet another line. "If you start sending me thank you notes, I'll buy you a ribbon." When the gate code panel shorted during a summer storm, I stood under an umbrella and felt that small old ache tap my ribs. The part that worries all this building is just me playing house where no one will knock. The electrician arrived and reset the world to green. Rosa handed me a towel and a list of pantry items we were short on. Lists are kind to aching ribs. They give them something to carry. I don't rehearse the reunion. I do rehearse my own lines. There's a page taped inside a cabinet where the mugs breathe, "Hello. You're safe here if you can be safe to others." Here are the rules the house and I keep. Here's the door, here's the lamp, here's the calendar. We can start with soup. If you need to be angry, be specific and take a walk after. I swim every other evening when the sun lets go of its intensity and the day tastes like citrus at the edge. Laps are a form of counting I can believe in. On lap 12, I sometimes let myself imagine a tall boy coming through the gate on purpose. Not out of desperation, but out of curiosity. And the house greeting him like it recognizes his bones. I don't beg the image to stay. I let it pass, like clouds that know the sky is still the sky when they've moved on. The porch lights know their job. Now they brighten when someone steps up, warm enough to flatter, honest enough to reveal. Keys hang by the door, 2 spares labeled in plain letters, and a small brass hook waits empty above a tag that says Noah. Not to guilt, not to haunt, just to keep my hope organized, the way any good shelf keeps its jars upright, within reach, and clearly named. They arrived on a Tuesday that smelled like wet rosemary and second chances. Headlights brushed the bougainvillea. The front camera blinked its polite hello, then the bell gave 2 quick notes like it was trying out jazz. Light joke 1, whispered to the brass button as I reached for the latch. "You're a doorbell, not a drummer. Keep it tasteful." The porch lights warmed, I opened the door. Daniel stood first, older around the eyes, holding a suitcase whose corners confessed they'd met a few curbs. Brianna hovered half a step behind, lips pressed into civility. Noah, taller than my memory, wore a hoodie with the sleeves shoved to his elbows and an expression teenagers practice in mirrors until it looks effortless. 2 more suitcases, a duffel, a grocery sack of tangled chargers. The welcome mat said, "Come in kindly." Light joke too, to the letters under my breath. "Thank you for practicing boundaries better than some humans." "We need a place," Daniel said. The sentence didn't wobble. The man did. He explained in fragments: rent spike, job hours cut, an argument that found its way to a landlord's ear, a lease that had learned how to end. He didn't say pride. It stood beside him anyway, trying not to make noise. I stepped back to open the door wider and pointed to the bench just inside. "Shoes off," I said evenly, both for the floors and because we think better with less weight. They obeyed, relieved to be told something simple. Elder wisdom reflection. Courtesy of a supervisor who trained me to handle messy check-ins at midnight when a crisis knocks. Set a chair, pour water, and reach for paper. Never negotiate hungry or standing up. I led them to the kitchen table. 4 glasses, 1 pitcher, a plate of sliced oranges because biting into brightness steadies hands. I set a folder on the table with a calmness I'd built by practicing it when no one watched. "We can talk about staying," I said. "And there are conditions." Brianna's shoulders ticked. Daniel stared at the condensation ladder on his glass. Noah studied the pool through the window like it might try to speak. Quirky fact, filed where it fit because suitcases sat by the door looking embarrassed, wheeled luggage didn't take over the world until the 1970s. Before that, people dragged hired bellhops or pretended their arms didn't ache. It's amazing how long a simple mercy waits to be invented. I slid a coaster toward Daniel. "We will do this with mercy and with handles," I said. "Both." "Are you punishing us?" Brianna asked, voice already poised for the defense. "I'm protecting this house," I answered, "and everyone who sleeps in it." I opened the folder. Here's the residency agreement. It's simple on purpose. Adults who stay longer than a weekend need a source of work or enrollment in something constructive within 30 days. Counseling if requested by either party, and a contribution to the household budget that matches the season you're in. This. I tapped the second page. Is the visitor code for anyone supervising a minor here, no disparaging other caregivers in front of him. It bends kids' ears wrong. And this is the grace clause, which lets us pause and renegotiate when people are trying and the day is still heavy. Daniel took the top page like a man picking up a newly sharpened knife. "You made all this." "With a lawyer," I said. "So that kindness doesn't have to improvise." Light joke 3, to the pen as I said it between us. This one writes in anti-drama ink. "Is this about me?" Noah asked without looking away from the pool. The question surprised me with its steadiness. "It's about all of us," I said. "But I am thinking about you when I say the word safety." He nodded as if that matched a word he'd been trying not to say out loud. Brianna skimmed, then bristled at the line about disparagement. "So I can't have opinions?" "You can," I said. "You just can't turn them into labels inside a child's head." Daniel's face flickered. Memory touched him and asked to be let in. He didn't open the door yet, but he put his hand on the knob. Academic phrase of the day. Intergenerational co-residence. The public argument that multi-generational living can heal or harm depending on power, privacy, and reciprocity. Scholars debate whether design and rules can turn closeness into care instead of control. I gestured around us. We've designed this. Doors that lock from the inside. Chores that live on a board, not in resentment. Budgets that get written down. If you stay, we keep those promises. What does staying look like tonight? Daniel asked. He was learning to pronounce the new furniture. Guest suite for now, I said. Tomorrow, you two meet with Harper, my attorney, for a walkthrough of the paperwork and to set up a budget contribution that you can actually keep. We'll calendar counseling options. Noah gets the corner room if he wants it, the one with the good moon. School enrollment stays put. I'll drive if needed until buses behave. He opened his mouth to mention money. I lifted a hand. We'll scale it, I said. First week is groceries and chores. Rosa runs house operations. You'll do what she says. Marco will show you the pool system. He likes pumps more than people. So listen closely the first time. Noah finally turned from the window. Can I swim? Yes, I said. After we write the rules on the whiteboard with your handwriting, so the house can read them, too. His mouth tugged somewhere between skepticism and a smile, trying on courage in a mirror. Brianna tapped the line that said, no disparagement. What if he asks me? She said. Tell the truth kindly. I answered. Or tell him you need a minute to find the kind version. Silence is better than poison. She looked at me like I had asked her to swim while holding a book above water. It's a skill. We can learn it. We ate soup because soup makes rooms honest. Daniel said he could pick up extra shifts. I asked him to start with steady ones. Brianna said she had clients to call. I asked for a calendar we could all see. The clock over the stove kept good time without rushing us. After dishes, I walked Noah upstairs. The corner room received him the way rooms do when they've been waiting without being needy. He touched the desk, the clean drawer, the window latch that works. I opened the closet. 2 spare hangers waited with serene patience. On the dresser sat the photo I'd set under glass years ago, a boy in a paper crown, slightly crooked. He looked at it for a long moment, and then at me. You were 8, I said, and you believed the loudest voice. He breathed out through his nose. A sound teenagers use when their chest recognizes a sentence before their brain lets them endorse it. I won't let anyone talk bad about you here, he said. Not quite looking at me. Including me. Write that on the whiteboard tomorrow, I said. The house likes to read. Downstairs, Harper texted back morning slot open. I penciled it on the kitchen calendar while Rosa updated the chore board like a conductor laying out the week's music. Daniel carried in their suitcases, careful with the corners. Brianna stood at the sink, rinsing bowls, and arranged her face into usefulness. I handed her a towel, then a list towels and linens to launder tomorrow. Pantry inventory, a call to the bus office. Brisk work is a mercy for people who don't know where to put their hands. When the house grew quiet, I hung a spare key on the hook labeled Guest, and I left the brass hook labeled Noah empty because promise should not be rushed into metal. I checked the porch light. The bougainvillea agreed to behave. Before bed, I wrote 3 lines on a sticky note and kissed it onto the fridge. We sit to speak. We write what matters. We make repair small and daily. The pen, to its credit, kept its anti-drama vows. The rooms memorized the new names we'd given actions. And for the first time in years, a boy slept under my roof without needing to choose sides against himself. Morning stretched itself across the kitchen in a long, bright yawn. Rosa arrived with her clipboard and 2 aprons, 1 calico. One sensible gray, then tapped the choreboard like a conductor about to start the overture. "We begin with laundry and surfaces," she said, handing Brianna a pen. "Write what you think you know." Brianna printed "hot equals cleaner" in careful block letters. Rosa smiled the smile of a woman who's seen too many brave myths. "By noon," she said, "you'll edit that sentence." Marco whistled from the back door, carrying a coil of hose and the calm of a person who likes machines better than complaints. He tossed Daniel a pair of gloves and pointed toward the pool equipment pad. "We'll talk pumps, baskets, skimmers, and why leaves lie," he said. Light joke 1 to the rake leaning by the bougainvillea. "We're aiming for haircut, not midlife crisis." The rake pretended not to take it personally. Daniel grinned despite himself and followed. "We split the house into reasonable squares." Rosa showed Brianna the laundry room like a museum docent. Colors meet cold. Stains meet science. "Bleach meets never with vinegar," she said, lifting bottle caps as if they were evidence in a gentle trial. Brianna nodded too quickly. The way you nod when the test has already begun and you wish the questions were shorter. Elder wisdom reflection. Offering itself the way a clean towel offers a landing when you're teaching someone grown to do a thing they should have learned small. Give them steps and an exit ramp. Pride bruises less when the process provides a chair. I made tea, set it within reach, and let Rosa keep time. Quirky fact housekeeping edition. Those magic eraser sponges are melamine foam, a web of hard little cells that work like a superfine sandpaper. They erase by gently abrading the grime. They can dull shiny paint if you treat them like enthusiasm instead of tools. Brianna pressed one to a wall scuff and gasped at the clean rectangle it left. "Like deleting," she whispered. "Like editing," Rosa corrected, tapping the softer surrounding paint. "We remove what doesn't belong, not the story itself." In the backyard, Marco unscrewed the pump lid and showed Daniel the way air bubbles confess leaks. "Listen," he said, putting Daniel's hand on the pipe. "Good pressure hums, bad pressure whines." He explained the skimmer basket's gift for catching drama early and the filter's job as a quiet archivist. Daniel nodded, jaw loose in genuine concentration. The sun lifted over the rosemary, water revised itself in small, patient circles. Brianna's first load bloomed a pink sigh. "Cold water," Rosa reminded, not unkindly. "Sort by breath, not by label who needs to wear which thing tomorrow." Brianna swallowed. "I was told I'm not domestic," she said, as if reading from a file. "You're not a type," Rosa returned. "You're a person who can learn." She handed her the mesh bag for delicatesse, like a truce flag. Noah wandered in mid-morning, hair doing the teenage version of weather, eyes sleep bright. He stood near the science station I'd built under the shade sail, poked a wire, and pretended not to be impressed. "Want to help me label the whiteboard rules?" I asked. He shrugged the shrug that teenagers use to pad the distance between maybe and yes, then followed me to the kitchen. We printed in his handwriting, "No food in rooms. Pool after chores. Respect ix actions plus mouths." He added one, tongue peeking from the corner of his mouth with the effort of getting the words right. "No trash talk about family." He paused, then underlined family once, hard, like a person scoring a line in wet concrete before it sets. "Good," I said, He kept the marker a second longer than necessary and put it down as if it weighed exactly what it should. Academic phrase of the day: authoritative parenting. The public argument that warmth plus firm boundaries, explained and enforced consistently, tends to produce the best outcomes for kids. Not permissive all warmth, no walls. Not authoritarian all walls, no warmth. But a house that smiles and still locks the gate at night. I did not recite the term to Noah. I let the rule board do the teaching and kept my voice gentle but exact. By noon, Daniel had blisters beginning where city hands meet country jobs. Marco wrapped them with a competence that didn't need applause. Pace is part of skill, he said. Hard for people who learned approval by sprint. Daniel laughed once, surprised at the accuracy. He carried the green bin to the curb like a man who wanted his son to see him doing something honest. Brianna mismeasured the floor cleaner and made the entryway slick. Dilution is inclusion, Rosa said dryly, then grinned to soften it. Light joke too? To the measuring cup as I handed it over. You are the unsung hero of realism. We mopped the solution into reason. Brianna's face changed 5 degrees toward relief when the tile stopped pretending to be ice. I set bowls of soup on the counter because this house believes in midday broth for people learning new muscles. Thank you, Daniel said, not looking at me, but not avoiding it either. Brianna blew on her spoon and, out of habit, glanced at Noah before making a face that once would have been permission to sneer. She caught herself, rearranged the expression into neutral, and tried again. It's good, she said. And I believed her. After lunch, Rosa led a pantry reset. We pulled everything out like a magician emptying a hat to prove there was no trick. Beans with July ambition stood politely beside rice with November patience. We labeled shelves in plain language: pasta, broth, snacks, because weary brains obey nouns faster than philosophy. Where should I put the treats? Brianna asked. Where you won't lie to yourself about them, Rosa said, tapping a high shelf and then handing her a step stool. Honesty is accessible, not easy. Daniel and I moved outside to prune the rosemary into something the gate could pass without snagging sleeves. He trimmed 2 close ones, apologized to the plant. Then to me, I should have defended you, he said, still looking at stems. At the party. Before the party. A lot. The air held the sentence like a bowl that knows when to sit still. You can defend people forward, I said. The gate swings that direction. He nodded and kept cutting, shoulders remembering a lighter angle. Inside, Brianna's second load of laundry finished its penance. Whites emerged persuadable. Towels rolled into polite cylinders under Rosa's firm hands. Teach me the corners, Brianna asked. Rosa guided her through the choreography fold. Tuck, smooth, breathe. You're allowed to be bad at first, Rosa said. You're not allowed to stay bad out of pride. Brianna laughed the first unarmed sound of the day and hung 2 shirts with the hangers facing the same direction. A small allegiance to order. Noah returned to the whiteboard and drew a tiny basil plant in the corner, a joke only the house and I fully got. Does the pool count as chores? He asked. It counts as balance, I said. After you lint roll that sofa like it owes you rent. He did, smirking when the roller filled up with enough dog hair to knit an apology sweater for a cat we don't own. Light joke 3. To the roller as it grabbed another strip. You're an archivist with sticky ethics. Noah snorted. that unguarded teen laugh that announces a truce with the day. By late afternoon, the house had learned the cadence of us. The floor smelled like citrus rather than bravado. The pump hummed its contented vowel. The laundry room exhaled a warm, fabric-soft sigh. Marco logged the chemical levels on the clipboard. Rosa initialed the chore chart with a flourish. I wiped down the counter the way people pat a shoulder when the apology has landed. Brianna hovered by the whiteboard. "I have a client tomorrow," she said. "Eyes on the rules. It's a 4-hour block. I can bring in 2 grocery bags after." "Good," I said. "Put the appointment on the calendar and the receipt in the bowl. The house likes receipts." She nodded, then added client 10-2 in her handwriting, small but legible. Next to it, almost as an afterthought, she wrote, "Listen first." She tapped the board once with the marker cap and stepped back, as if daring her own habit to contradict her. Evening cooled the bougainvillea, and the porch lights performed their quiet miracle of flattering without lying. Daniel stood at the sink, sleeves pushed up, hands soapy, humming a tune I used to hear from his bedroom when homework went well. Noah set places with knives facing inward and forks that didn't wobble. I didn't tell him I noticed. He will notice himself soon enough. We ate without speeches. People asked for what they needed. No one said real or fake. The table handled elbows and confessions with equal steadiness. When dishes were stacked and Knight agreed to keep an eye on the yard, I stood beneath the ceiling fan and felt the house memorize the new shape of us. On the fridge, the sticky note from last night watched over everything. We sit to speak. We write what matters. We make repair small and daily. I added a 4th line. We thank the helpers and underlined Rosa and Marco's names once, like a promise of future envelopes handed with 2 hands. Upstairs. Noah paused at his door. "You can come in," he said. The ancient sentence that means trust is stretching. The moon framed itself politely in his window, on the dresser. The photo of the boy in the paper crown looked at the taller boy and did not demand anything. "Good night," I said. "Good night," he answered. It landed like a seed in good soil. By late afternoon, the pool held a mild version of the sky. The rosemary hedge breathed peppery patience, and the laundry room clicked its slow metronome of spin and settle. Rosa had left an index card taped to the washer cold for color, cool for wool, hot for germs you can't pronounce, and Brianna, cheeks pink from an earlier misadventure, folded contrite towels like pennants with edges. Elder wisdom reflection. Carried down a line of women who could fix a day with a clothespin if you want repair to last. Do it where people can see you doing it at the table, by the sink, poolside if you must, so the house learns the new choreography along with you. We were visible to each other today. In the forgiving way sunlight makes all our dents look like texture. Marco re-wrapped Daniel's blisters with clean gauze and a strip of athletic tape, then taught him how to slow a rake so hands and hedge both kept their dignity. Light joke 1. To the coil of hose sunning itself like a lazy snake. You work 1 hour and take a 3-hour union break, don't you? The hose did not comment. Daniel grinned, and the grin did a little mending of its own. Noah drifted toward the patio table where I'd set the snap circuit kit under the shade sail. He pretended to come for the cold grapes. Teenagers are polite that way. They give their curiosity a snack to hide behind. This one makes a fan, I said, clicking 2 blue pieces into a path. When I was little, Dad made fans by waving a magazine, he said. Eyes on the board, voice carefully casual. What was he like when? The question arrived like a paper boat small, floating, and braver than it looked. I kept my tone low, the ASMR hum of a story that knows the channel it wants. He liked to fix things that weren't his job, I said. When he was 12, neighbors' radios wandered to our porch like strays. He'd sit with a butter knife and a lot of optimism. Your great-grandmother kept a jar labeled extra screws. Noah snorted. So some radios went back lighter. And some came back with the baseball game again, I said. He'd go very still when the announcer said, "He's safe." He liked people to be safe. We clicked another piece. The fan spun, lifting a strand of his hair. He didn't pat it down. "Mom says he leaves," Noah said. The words carefully rearranged to feel like quoting, not accusing. I thought about the old stories we give children when we're tired. "He has," I said. "And he's also stayed for hard work this week." Two true things can sit on the same bench without fighting. If you don't make them borrow each other's shoes. Quirky fact: offered like a poolside umbrella for the mind, wool fibers have tiny scales. Add heat, moisture, and agitation, and those scales lock like neighbors building a fence without talking. First your sweater shrinks and toughens, a process called felting or fulling. Brianna's pink cheeks deepened. The baby blue sweater on the counter now fit a determined spaniel. "I'm learning," she said. Rosa, passing by with the basket, patted her shoulder. "You're learning where the scales are," she said. "Now we teach them to lie flat." Noah glanced toward the laundry room and back at me. "Mom says you label people." "I label shelves," I said, letting a smile be audible in my voice. People label themselves with what they repeat. He studied the pool. "Did Dad get in trouble a lot?" "Not a lot," I said. But once he reversed the car down the driveway to hear the crunch of snow under tires again, he was caught not for the crunch, for the reversing without a license, and he had to shovel every sidewalk on the block. He learned to love work right then, or at least to respect it. Noah's laugh came out like a cough trying to be brave. "He loves work now," he said. "He gets loud about it. Loud is one way to prove you're present." I said, "There are other ways." This week he's trying one hands, doing honest things at steady speed. Light joke 2. To the pool noodles stacked like neon punctuation, as I handed Noah one. "These have more degrees than half the internet." He jabbed the water, embarrassed and entertained in equal measure. And the surface stitched itself back together like a well-behaved quilt. We swam slow laps faster, me content with a glide that felt like punctuation between sentences. Between breaths, he asked, "Did you ever leave him?" "I took a weekend. Once," I said. I wrote a note that said, "I will be back Monday, and I will expect Tuesday to look different." When I returned, he had cleared the dining table of his projects and put all the screw jars on a shelf. He didn't learn everything that day, but he learned furniture is not a toolbox. Noah hung on the edge, considering the sentence like a screw he might use later. Academic phrase of the day: narrative identity. The public argument that who we are takes shape through the stories we tell about ourselves and each other. Scholars debate how memory edits, how power assigns roles, and whether a person can co-author their plot after someone else has been narrating too loudly. "I'd like you to co-author yours," I said. Not the one that says you're a referee between adults. Not the one that says you have to choose a parent to be real. How about the story where you're a builder? He didn't move for a beat. Then he pushed off and swam one clean underwater length, as if to show me a boy who can hold his breath inside a plan. We toweled off under the shade sail. Daniel arrived with the skimmer basket, a few leaves clinging like stubborn thoughts. He looked different, a man who'd been concentrating all day and liked the feeling. "Show me your filter log," Noah said. Surprising both of us. And Daniel did, as if he'd been waiting for that exact request. "Pressure's holding," Daniel said. "Pump whistles if air sneaks in," Noah added, proud of a fact he'd overheard. They stood shoulder to shoulder for a second, reading the same line without arguing over how to pronounce it. Some repairs are this small and this enormous. Brianna came out with a plate of cut apples and a truth trying to become a sentence. I told him things. She said to the air near us that made it easier for me to be mad. She looked at Noah directly. Some of those things were wrong. Some were half true. Half true is a mean shape. The rosemary stirred, as if eavesdropping politely. Noah's mouth tightened, then loosened. "No trash talk about family," he said, nodding toward the kitchen where the rule lived on the board. "Even when you're mad." "Even then," she said, and took a bite like a pledge. Light joke 3. Offered to the bougainvillea's thorns as I plucked a fallen bloom. "We appreciate your commitment to boundaries, perhaps fewer memos." Brianna snorted. Daniel smiled with his eyes. The house relaxed a degree, the way rooms do when confessions are followed by a chore list and not by theater. As the sun got low enough to stop auditioning for the lead, we set a small folding table by the deep-end lemon water. 2 pens, a notebook that loves clean letters. "Write today's work," I said. "Not to praise, just to remember." Daniel wrote pump 15 psi. Skimmed at 30, then added, asked for help when the basket jammed. Brianna wrote laundry cold, edited sweater story, winced at her own joke, and then wrote apologized without explaining for 5 minutes. Noah wrote swam 1x underwater, did not perform being fine. He looked at me sideways while the line dried. "That counts," I said. "Counting is a kindness." We ate early grilled chicken, rice that didn't grandstand, cucumbers that remembered crunch, and afterward, Noah asked for a story that would not embarrass anyone in the telling. I chose the one about the summer Daniel fixed the library's box fan with paper clips and found a thank you note on the returns cart that just said, "You made my page stop blowing away." "That's kind of a superpower," Noah said, faking indifference poorly. "A small one," I said. "The best kind for daily use." Night came dressed for sleep. The pump hummed its vowel. The rosemary stopped keeping score. The laundry room, forgiven, smelled like nothing at all a domestic miracle. I walked Noah upstairs. He paused at the dresser where the photo under glass watched without need. "If I ask you something and you don't want to answer, will you say so instead of making it pretty?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Pretty is for cakes. Real is for families." He nodded, a builder drafting his first load-bearing line. Downstairs, I rinsed grapes and wrote 3 dates on the calendar, Harper with budgets. Rosa's laundry tutorial, part 2, sweaters in exile, and porch group holding lines. Kindly. I added a line at the bottom where we had been listing groceries and small victories today. The house learned our new names for effort. The pen didn't scratch. It slid ink like a good promise. When the lights went down, the pool kept a square of sky for us, just in case someone needed to remember what reflection looks like when it isn't trying to win. The whiteboard rules dried without smudging. And in the upstairs corner room, a tall boy slept without rehearsing his next defense. His breath steady, as if a story had finally turned a page and found margins worth writing in. We called it a porch meeting because the word meeting scares people who have been living minute to minute. The rosemary let the afternoon cool it. The pool held a square of sky for moral support. I set the long table with water, sliced pears, and 3 folders Daniel's, Brianna's, Noah's, plus a small jar of paper clips because order likes a mascot. Harper arrived in sandals and a sensible blazer, shook hands like doorbells, and sat where the light was kind to everyone's face. Elder wisdom reflection. Spoken once by a supervisor who saved a dozen midnights if people can't yet change their feelings. Help them change their calendars. Put promises where the sun can find them. So we did. The big kitchen calendar leaned against a pitcher. The pens waited like lifeguards who take their quiet very seriously. Today is for lines that hold, I said, keeping my voice in that low ASMR register the house recognizes. Not punishments, structures. If we're staying together, the house needs to know our pace. Harper slid Daniel's folder forward. Inside an offer letter for an entry-level facilities tech with my company, 40 hours to start. Benefits in 90 days. Marco as supervisor. A counseling referral list with 3 names circled, and a simple acknowledgement that he'd read the residency agreement and the visitor code and would follow both. Daniel's mouth did the thing it does when gratitude and dread step on each other's feet. I thought I'd have to beg, he said. We don't hire beggars. Harper answered gently. We hire people who will learn. Light joke one, murmured to the pen as I set it by his elbow. You've been training for this, right? Steady. Avoid drama. The pen obliged. Marco knows I'm green? Daniel asked, eyes on the paragraph about training. He requested green, I said. He says it's easier to teach habit than unteach swagger. A small laugh escaped him like a hinge loosening properly. He signed. We initialed. Paper learned a new job. Brianna's folder waited. She touched the tab as if it might bite. 2 paths, I said, and slid the page she needed to see. Option 1, employment, 8A, M to 1P, M, housekeeping rotation under Rosa, clear checklist, weekly debrief, real pay, a performance plan we can be proud of in 90 days. Option 2, if you'd rather not work for me, you can continue staying here under the residency agreement and sign a mutual confidentiality and non-disparagement clause regarding our household and my business. Both options include the counseling menu. Either way, the rule about not labeling family in front of Noah stands. It lives on paper and on the board. She scanned, breathing too shallow. So, work or NDA? Work or a different contract, I said, both with dignity. I won't micromanage your character. I will safeguard this roof. She looked toward the pool, then toward Rosa's folded apron on the rail. I can work, she said. And the sentence arrived without theatrics, which made it believable. Then we put you on Rosa's Monday crew, Harper said. Pencil neat? We'll revisit at 30 and 90 days. Brianna nodded, surprised at herself. Quirky fact, slid in like a sidebar with manners, many offices prefer blue ink for signatures because scans keep black from telling you which page is the original blue stays a little truer. The eye recognizes blue as this was touched. Our pens were blue. We watched the pages receive us. Noah's folder held fewer pages and more invitation. The whiteboard rules he'd written in his own hand. A copy of the visitor code. A simple statement of his rights in this house to safety, to sleep, to not referee adults, to the quiet use of the corner room. I'd included a blank page titled, "What I Want This Place to Be." He looked at it like a cliff and then like a path. "Can I fill it in later?" "Yes," I said. "The lamp will be on." Harper cleared her throat with a kindness that made even the bougainvillea listen. Academic phrase of the day: behavioral contracts in family systems. The public argument that writing agreements can scaffold change by making invisible expectations visible. While critics worry it can turn intimacy into litigation or power plays. We're aiming for scaffold, not courtroom. She tapped the grace clause, highlighted in the margin. This is our "Remember People Are People" paragraph. Daniel signed his counseling consent. Brianna penciled 2 sessions onto the calendar like she was applying for permits inside her own chest. "What if I mess up?" she asked. "Small." We pause. We repair. We document. I said, "That's what the grace clause is for. It's not a trapdoor, it's a chair." Light joke too, under my breath to the chairs as I checked their wobble with a thumb. "You are furniture. Please be exemplary." They behaved. The room noticed. We took a pear break because sugar helps ink dry without smudging regrets. Noah balanced his slice on his folder and asked Harper, "What happens if someone breaks the visitor code?" "We address it quickly," she said. "Noah, you won't be the messenger. Adults will call the adults." His shoulders unhooked a notch. He added a line to his blank page. "I don't carry the megaphone." Rosa and Marco joined us for 10 minutes, not to witness, but to hear the lines they'd be asked to hold. Rosa nodded at Brianna's Monday assignment with the pragmatic warmth of someone who has exactly one metric. "Are we learning?" Marco nodded at Daniel's training plan and slid over a small box. "Work gloves," he said. "Fit better than the loaners." Daniel slipped them on. They did. We scheduled. Daniel Monfrey 8 to 4. Counseling Thursday at 6. Paycheck calendar taped inside his closet door. Brianna Monfrey 8 to 1 on Rosa's crew. Counseling Tuesdays at 3. Dinner duty Wednesdays, menu to be written on Mondays. Noah study block 7 to 9. Pool after chores. Robotics club interest meeting next week if he wants me to drive. The calendar looked like cooperation learning cursive. When the last signature landed, the air changed. Not relief, more like the quiet after a knot decides to remember it was string first. Daniel exhaled with his whole back. Brianna rolled her shoulders like a person returning a borrowed posture. Noah closed his folder and tapped its edge once, testing for reality. "Okay," he said. And the word was older than his hoodie. We stood. I collected the pages into clear sleeves because weather happens indoors, too. Harper packed her blazer back into competence and left us with copies and a reminder: call if a clause confuses you. Clauses love pretending they're clear. Light joke 3, to the paper clips as I fed them 2 at a time into the jar's wide mouth. "You are tiny counselors with better hair." The jar looked pleased. Dinner was plain and good. No speeches. After. Daniel washed pans with the concentration of a man who knows the day just bet on him. Brianna wiped the counter without becoming a martyr. She even thanked Rosa for the laundry card taped to the washer. Noah took a photo of the whiteboard rules and set it as his lock screen, which felt like a small treaty with himself. Before bed, I walked the house. Doors latched with their modest click. The pool whispered its vowel. The calendar held new ink the way the sky holds a map you can't see but sailors believe in anyway. I stopped by the corner room. Noah stood at the dresser, filling the blank page. He didn't hide it. He wrote, "A place where people are specific. Where leaving is a verb you use on rooms, not on each other. Where Saturdays have chores and swimming and one fun errand. Where I don't have to check faces before I speak." He capped the pen and looked at me. "Too much." "Just enough," I said. I added one line to the little ledger on the fridge labeled "Small Repairs." Daily signed what needed hands, scheduled what needed time, named what needed a gentler name. The house, having learned our signatures, memorized the sound of us keeping them. And in the night, when papers cooled and ink settled, the porch kept watch like a librarian who loves the part where people return what they borrowed and leave a thank you on the desk. The morning after we signed our names, calendars started speaking up. Daniel left at 7:12 with his lunch in a square container that finally had a matching lid, small omen, pleasantly domestic. He tapped the gate twice like a pilot checking wings. By 10, Marco texted a photo of Daniel swapping a cracked skimmer basket, blisters taped, grin quiet and real. The caption read, "Pressure holding, new habit forming." I saved it to a folder titled "Work Looks Good on You," because future discouragements deserve evidence. Elder wisdom reflection, delivered to me years ago at a bus stop by a woman who could fold a paper bag into origami dignity if you broke a thing out loud. Fix it at the same volume. Apologies should match the size of the echo. Whispering repairs to a crowd you shouted at is how bridges stay broken. Brianna's first shift started under Rosa's watchful clock. She arrived early, hair braided, face undecorated by defense. Rosa handed her a cart like a baton. "Bathrooms sing when you rinse the chorus off the mirror first," she said. Brianna scrubbed grout with a patience I hadn't met before. She tried to tuck a fitted sheet without breathing. Rosa made her exhale and start again. "Corners have moods," Rosa said. "Respect them." Light joke one, to the laundry basket sliding down the hall like an obedient pet. "You heal better than half the internet." It wagged exactly 0. Brianna laughed anyway. A small unarmed sound. At lunch, Brianna set her tray down and didn't pretend she'd forgotten words. "I'd like to correct myself," she said. "To the table. To the tile. To me. The sentence I fed Noah about you not being real was wrong. I want to say it right where it was loud." I pushed the pitcher toward her and let her choose volume. "Porch group meets at 6, I said. "It's open. You can tell your own mouth to be a better neighbor." Quirky fact for the day. My favorite kind of kitchen science masquerading as a metaphor, bananas, release ethylene gas, which nudges other fruit to ripen faster when you sit them together in the same bowl. Put a green avocado beside a banana, and they'll conspire toward guacamole. Repairs work like that, too. One honest act accelerates the next if you let them share air. I put a banana by the pears to make my point to myself. Noah came home with a flyer for robotics club and an expression that pretended the paper had snuck into his backpack on its own. "Interest meeting Thursday," he said, nudging the flyer toward the magnet strip without looking too needy. "I can drive," I said, "and I'll bring a pen that refuses to sign you up for things you hate." He snorted, half building a smile. He pointed to the whiteboard rule, "No trash talk," about family, and underlined family twice. Then he added, in smaller letters, "including me." The house read it and adjusted its shoulders. Daniel's text after counseling was a photograph of a worksheet with 3 circles, thoughts, feelings, actions, and a line that said, "It is hard for me not to choose volume when I am afraid." "That's an honest sentence," I replied. He answered with the image of a wrench and a heart, emoji language learning how to be useful. We set the porch like a stage that refuses drama water pitcher, folded paper, pens that write without scratching. The rosemary breathed pepper and forgiveness. Neighbors arrived with careful eyes and low voices. Brianna sat where the light didn't force her to confess more than she meant to. I opened with housekeeping, literally housekeeping phones away. We speak in turns. We don't fix each other. We write 3 actionable nouns before we go. Then I looked at her and waited. I told a child a story that made my frustration feel righteous. She said, hands steady on her knees, I called it a boundary. It was hostility that smiled. She breathed. I was wrong. She's his grandmother. I want to be better at the counting part of love, how much listening, how much pausing, how much not performing. The wind moved the bougainvillea like a chorus that had been practicing for this cue. Academic phrase of the day: performative apology, the public argument that apologies centered on reputation. Maintenance rather than repair can backfire. Increasing distrust and hardening harm. Scholars debate how to measure sincerity, whether publicness helps or cheapens, and what offer of repair should look like in practice. Offer of repair, I said gently. When she paused, Brianna nodded. No labels, she said. In front of him or anyone. I'll say grandmother without qualifiers. And I'll ask before I speak for the group. We wrote those on the board. The marker made the clean noise of ink deciding to belong. Light joke too. To the paper clips lined like tiny swimmers, we applaud strokes that move forward. The jar did not applaud. The neighbors did, quietly, which is the porch's preferred volume. Noah, listening at the edge with a teenager's posture, interested from an angle shifted closer. He didn't handle her absolution. He handled the sentence on the board. Okay, he said. We can try again. After group, Brianna asked if she should post. Only if you're prepared to maintain, I said. The internet likes ceremonies more than it likes follow-through. Houses reverse that preference. She wrote a brief note in the family thread. Instead, I said a thing that bent your ears wrong. I'm unbending. She changed my contact name on Noah's phone from her first name to Grandma, and then handed him the phone so he could watch his own decision pretend to be a setting. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Daniel came in from the yard smelling like hose water and competence. He didn't announce his exhaustion. He put the work gloves by the door on the little tray that asks for such manners. At dinner, he reported that he'd learned the pump's impeller isn't a fan, it's a propeller, and that leaves tell time by how fast they clog the basket after a breeze. I like jobs with verbs, he said. Skim, prime, backwash. They don't let you philosophize instead of move. Light joke 3. To the rice as it stood there, being humble and perfect. You're the union representative for starch-based peace. Later, on the couch, Noah asked for a story that felt like a vote of confidence, not a relic. I told him about the time his dad rebuilt a box fan for the librarian again and taped a note to himself that said, "Do not borrow the dining table for engineering after 8 p.m., and how he actually obeyed the note for a whole summer. That's honor system, Noah said. Honor practice. I said, it gets stronger when you actually train it. Before bed. I wrote 3 sentences in the ledger on the fridge. Daniel worked without a speech and left his gloves where the tray could be proud. Brianna apologized at porch volume and set 2 appointments she didn't cancel. Noah chose handwriting that didn't insult himself. The house likes specifics. It sleeps better. I checked the upstairs corner. On his dresser, Noah had started a list on that page I gave him. Things I can build. 1, a robot with a chassis that forgives clumsy hands. 2, a morning that doesn't need to read faces first. 3, a habit of saying I need 5 instead of exploding. He'd written the 3rd one twice, as if the letter forms could carry some of the work. Downstairs, I placed a banana in the fruit bowl beside 2 stubborn pears and found that my heart had accepted its own metaphor and was ready to be a little riper tomorrow. I wiped the counter in slow circles the house knows by heart. The porch lights dimmed to their polite night posture. Somewhere. Marco was probably putting the tools back into the right drawer because he doesn't believe in waking up to chaos. Neither. Anymore, do we? When I turned off the lamp, the pool kept 1 patch of sky for us, like a receipt for the day choices on paper. Yes. Choices in hands. Starting to smudge the ink where it should into muscle, into tone, into the way a door is held or a sentence ends without a jab. I lay down and let my breath take its time. Repair is a motion you learn, not a single signature. Tonight, we practice the motion. Tomorrow, we practice again. By the time the rosemary bloomed its pale, unshowy flowers, our calendars had taught their pens to behave. Daniel passed his 90 days with Marco on time. Hands steady. A man who has learned the romance of maintenance. He keeps a small notebook in his back pocket now. Pressure readings and filter dates written in block letters that look like they trust themselves. When a pump whined last Tuesday, he didn't raise his voice. He reached for the wrench, lifted a brow at Marco for the nod, and fixed the air leak like someone coaxing a jar lid to remember how to open. Elder wisdom reflection. Simmered to the softness of soup, the repair that lasts is usually the least dramatic. Show up on the right day, at the right hour, with the right tool, and you can skip the fireworks and the speeches. Boring is a very respectable miracle. Brianna kept every counseling appointment she wrote down, Tuesdays at 3, and chose the porch circle more often than not. She apologized again where her voice had once bent ears wrong, same audience, same volume, fewer adjectives. Then she started doing repairs. The house could hear laundry measured and on time. Pantry labeled without the little sigh that used to mean beneath me. Dinner on Wednesdays without flinching. Light joke 1. To the measuring cups as they clacked together like modest cymbals. You two keep the music in 4/4, the kitchen thanks you. The cups refused applause, but the rice came out calm. Noah joined robotics club and taped a list inside his locker. Batteries charged, coat clean, breathe before finals. The first meet smelled like solder and hope. Our team spot hesitated at the ramp. Noah didn't perform being fine. He said into the huddle, I need 5, breathed, checked a connector, and rolled the little machine back onto the field as if the pause had been in the original choreography. After, he ate a lemon bar like a superstition he hadn't learned yet and let his shoulders be a place that good news could sit without falling off. Quirky fact to tuck into the pantry of your mind: dishwashers actually use less water than hand washing if you don't pre-rinse, and the hottest cycles are kinder to plates than to conversation. We tested the claim the way nerds do 2 loads. 1 sink, 1 machine, a measuring jug, and late-night laughter that sounded like high school chemistry finally growing up. The machine won. Also, the plates preferred the heat to our opinions. The visitor code became less about catching violators and more about letting the walls keep a rhythm, no disparagement. Not even in code. Not even with eyebrows. When someone slipped, because people do, we used the grace clause like a chair, not a trapdoor. Pause. Rosa would say from the sink, rewrite, and then we did. Light joke too, murmured to the paper towel that saw it all. You are privy to more drafts than any editor. Daniel earned his first small raise and used it on new boots that don't argue with ladders. Marco nodded, an accolade in his dialect. At dinner that night, Daniel told the table he'd nearly sliced the day open with hurry and instead had moved at the speed of instruction. I keep hearing, pace is part of skill, he said. The sentence is very loud in my head. Noah lifted his fork in a salute without making it weird. Brianna asked Rosa for a harder list stains with biographies. Baseboards that judge, grout with a grudge. She began training her hands to report to something steadier than shame. She also made amends, where she could reach them a school mom she'd once recruited into whispering. A cousin she'd fed a label that became a leash, herself, in the mirror, with a sentence that didn't try to add a brand new personality to the cart. I am learning, she wrote on the whiteboard, under the rules, in her own tidy print. Please believe what I repeat. The house read it, then waited to see if the verbs would line up with the nouns. Academic phrase of the day earned secure attachment, the public argument that people who didn't get consistent, attuned care early can still develop a secure way of relating later, through reliable relationships, clear boundaries, and practiced trust. Critics argue about measurement and the danger of turning hope into pressure. But the research agrees on one thing. Consistency is the quiet revolution. We didn't use the term out loud. We let the porch group be a laboratory for eye contact and follow through. Open Saturdays at the pool found their groove lifeguard on duty, fruit bowl enormous, rules posted in words even small swimmers could read. Daniel taught a dad how to backwash without making it a masculinity contest. Brianna handed out towels like hospitality was a language she could speak fluently once she stopped trying for poetry. Noah timed laps for a kid who needed a win and didn't put his generosity on a stage. The rosemary hedge watched without gossip. Marco, who rarely uses more words than a tool requires, started saying, looks right, about Daniel's work and good eyes, about Noah's wiring diagrams. Rosa started sending texts like, tell B she caught the red wine ghost in the rental bathroom respect. And Brianna would screenshot the message and keep it in a folder called Proof, a quiet inheritance from my own habits. We did the hard parts too. Daniel met with the counselor about the habit of volume. He wrote on a worksheet, it's hard for me not to take up the whole room when I'm scared. Can I take up just my chair? He practiced. I need 5 when his chest sprinted. Brianna learned how not to recruit allies when she felt small, how to fold a towel, call a friend who doesn't love drama, or sometimes go outside and pull 3 weeds because action is therapy that doesn't bill. Noah learned to say, specific, please. When adults were vague to avoid accountability. The whiteboard rule, respect, eel, actions plus mouths got a second underline and a smiley face, like a small bureaucrat who believes in his forms. Light joke 3. To the toolbox after Daniel returned everything to the right drawer. Organization is how screws know they're loved. The flatheads basked appropriately. On a Thursday evening, Brianna asked if she could make a statement to the family thread, not as theater, as maintenance. She wrote, I'm sorry for the label I used in front of Noah years ago. I will not use that label again. I will correct others when I hear it." She pressed send and then put her phone face down like someone choosing to trust the house more than the little machine. No one replied with confetti. Good. We were not rewarding, we were recording. And her hands were already in hot water doing the dishes. Noah's robotics team qualified for regionals by the unglamorous margin of not breaking at the wrong moment in the stands. I kept my applause under the decibel of kindness. After, he tucked the program into his folder and said, trying it out, "You can come next time, if you want to." Want was an understatement. I nodded like a grown-up. Quirky fact. Brought to you by the rosemary hedge's perfume, at dusk, the plant's name may come from the Latin Rose marinus dew of the sea because it thrives on coastal mist. It also contains rosmarinic acid, a compound that sounds like a relative but behaves like an antioxidant. Our hedge doesn't care about etymology, it cares if you prune with respect. We do. A letter arrived from a school administrator thanking grandmother for donating to the robotics program. I slid it under Noah's door with a sticky note that said simply, "For your folder." He left the note on the fridge later. No glitter, no emoji, just the word thanks in his handwriting. And I once again marveled at how paper can be louder than shouts when it wants to be. At night, when the pool kept its neat square of sky, I added lines to the ledger on the fridge. Daniel caught himself mid-lecture, chose a question. Brianna declined gossip, offered help, no side-eye. Noah asked for specific, please, and didn't apologize for needing details. The house likes to fall asleep on specifics. So do I. We are not cured. Doors still require hands. Tuesdays still surprise. Some mornings, a voice in an old corner of the kitchen whispers that love is a contest and labels are shortcuts. When that happens, I boil water, slice lemons, and put my hands in the exact place the day expects them. I'm not building a museum of second chances. I'm running a home that believes in work, in paper, in small nouns that carry weight without breaking, in kids who write their own rules with a marker that doesn't smudge when the weather changes. When Noah fell asleep that night, the corner room kept the moon politely framed. The whiteboard's ink had dried without bleeding into chaos. The porch lights did their steady job flattering without lying while the bougainvillea practiced boundaries with good posture. In the quiet, I let myself imagine a future that more or less resembles this men who fix hums instead of making them. Women who choose verbs over labels. A boy who never has to choose between the truth and a table. The kettle clicked. The house breathed. I wrote one more sentence repeat tomorrow. The regional smelled like solder, popcorn, and ambition. And the gym lights did that faint buzz that makes big days feel like refrigerators holding their breath. Our team's robot square, earnest, patched with tape that had seen better pep talks, rolled onto the field like a kid who knows his shoes are tied. Noah wore the safety glasses like a crown he didn't have to explain. I sat high enough to see the course and low enough that he could spot me if he needed to borrow a calm face. He didn't. He checked wires, nodded at a teammate, and told his own pulse, "I need 5," the way the rule on our whiteboard taught. Then ran the opening routine with the kind of steadiness that invites luck. When the buzzer retired for the afternoon, our little robot had done exactly enough not spectacular, not tragic competent, like a good sentence. The coach gave a speech about process. I clapped within the decibel limit of kindness and felt something untie that had been practicing its knot for years. In the hallway after, a parent I didn't know asked, "Are you Noah's?" and before I could decide how quiet to be, Noah answered across his shoulder without losing stride. "That's my grandmother." Simple as inventory. The sentence did not audition. It worked. Elder wisdom reflection. Sewn into me by a librarian who knew how to shelve emergencies, keep your introductions ready for the life you plan to live. Titles arrive faster when your voice is already wearing them. I had practiced mine in the kitchen, under my breath. Between rinsing grapes and teaching towels to behave, I am his grandmother. I am the adult who loves him without turning him into a stage. Back home, we hosted an open Saturday. The lifeguard waved kids in, the fruit bowl did its big-hearted job. Daniel showed a neighbor how to prime a pump without cussing at the gasket. Brianna managed towels with a piece that didn't look rehearsed. Noah perched under the shade sail, soldering a loose lead on a practice board while a little kid asked 100 questions in a row. He answered 90 and taught the rest to wait their turn. Quirky fact for the porch chocolate chip cookies were an accident a baker added chopped chocolate to dough, hoping it would melt. But the pieces held their shape, and history got better. We made a batch with extra chips and a rule that said compliments out loud, critiques on index cards. And the kitchen chose to smell like forgiveness instead of performance. Late afternoon brought a test I hadn't scheduled. Brianna's sister, Jess, appeared with a bag of just dropping off some things energy and the old habit of using eyebrows as weapons. She stepped onto the porch, clocked the rule board through the kitchen window, and said, "So we're pretending this fixed everything down." Daniel stiffened. Noah stilled. My mouth considered a long speech. I chose nouns. "We're not pretending," I said. "We're practicing." Shoes off, porch voice, and no disparagement in front of kids. Jess made a noise that wanted to be a laugh and couldn't find the door. Brianna wiped her hands and stepped beside me. Not behind. "Kitchen," she said to her sister, pointing at the table. "And we'll write down what we're doing so you don't have to guess." They sat. They wrote. The house listened. Jess left with softer eyebrows and a promise to return with a casserole and less theater. Progress, not pageantry. Academic phrase of the day, rupture and repair. The public argument that relationships don't thrive by avoiding conflict, but by moving through it with accountability, apology, and new behavior. Though critics warn that repair can be code for rush past harm. Our porch has a policy for that repair equals confession plus change calendar. We don't skip either half. At dinner, we ate food that didn't try too hard and told stories that did the same. Daniel reported a day without hurry. Brianna put a checkmark next to counseling on the calendar and said she had apologized to a school mom with the same volume she'd used to recruit her years ago. The woman cried in that tired way people do when the echo finally matches the harm. Noah laid the robotics medal on the counter and said it was heavy in a good way, then left it there instead of wearing it to the table. The house looked pleased. Light joke 1. To the medal as it glinted, you're a coaster with ambitions. Light joke 2. To the lifeguard whistle hanging by the door. Thank you for doing less today. Light joke 3. To the rosemary hedge, now square as an honest sentence. You look like boundaries with good posture. The day permitted humor because it trusted the floor. After dishes, we took out the big calendar and wrote what comes next. Daniel's permanent hire paperwork, Brianna's 90-day review on Rosa's crew, Noah's summer apprenticeship 2 afternoons a week at Marco's shop if he wants it, open Saturdays through August, porch group on alternating Wednesdays, and a weekend with nothing on it on purpose. I added in pencil teach Noah my lemon bar recipe, with the part where sugar remembers to sift like snow. We ended under the fan. reading quietly in the same room without auditioning our closeness. Before bed, Noah came to the study doorway. "You coming to the next meet?" I held up my planner. "It's ink," I said. He nodded once, satisfied, then pointed to the photo on the dresser, the boy in the crooked paper crown. He was wrong, he said softly. Or I was. Either way, sorry. I stood and rested my hand on the desk, not on his shoulder, so he could choose distance or not. "We're good," I said. "Let's keep being specific." Later, I walked the house. The porch lights eased into their evening posture. The pool kept a neat square of sky. Receipt for a day that did not lie. I wrote 3 lines in the ledger. We introduced ourselves correctly. We practiced repairs at porch volume. We chose chairs over stages. The ink dried like a promise that believes itself. When I turned off the lamp, the rosemary exhaled its small sea. The bougainvillea flexed its etiquette. And somewhere in the corner room, a tall boy slept with his shoulders unguarded. His phone face down, his medal forgotten on the counter where cookies cool. We are not finished. We are faithful. That is what this house was built to hold. The arc of this story is a slow, careful mending a birthday where a paper crown tilts and a sentence tries to rename a grandmother. A season of night shifts and envelopes, of buying a house designed to cooperate with good behavior. The quiet courage of opening that house to 3 people and insisting that love arrive with boundaries and dates. Instead of speeches, we used nouns: mug, rule, calendar, ledger, and the nouns behaved. Doors locked from the inside, lights flattered without lying. A whiteboard carried the family's grammar. The porch turned meetings into chairs, pens, and water placed within reach. Repair never asked us to pretend. It asked us to repeat. We wrote rules in Noah's handwriting and let the ink dry where everyone could see. We stapled grace to dates, so apologies could be counted fairly. We kept proof of courage in bowls and folders, because proof grows shy when no one tends it. Daniel learned the romance of maintenance, the quiet victory of a pump that stops whistling when a gasket finally agrees. Brianna practiced apologies at porch volume and folded corners until pride stopped snagging. Noah learned to say, "I need 5," to ask for specifics, to introduce his grandmother without staging the sentence. Around us, ordinary beauty kept time cookies born from a happy accident. Rosemary that remembers a small sea at dusk. Bougainvillea practicing boundaries with good posture. A pool that keeps a square of sky as receipt for honest days. No trumpets, just calendars filled in ink. Chairs chosen over stages. Chores preferred to theater. And a name worn correctly again. The house breathes. And we breathe with it. Tomorrow we'll ask for verbs. We will give it steady ones. And when the lights go low, the future walks softly down the hall, finds its lamp, and rests without asking permission to be real.